Well, breaking right now, a CSX train hauling ethanol has derailed in Spartanburg.
News 13's Victoria Dunkle is on the way to the scene and is live on the phone. Vic, what have you learned?
Well, we have learned that there are several cars that have derailed. 3 jumped the tracks. This happened earlier this morning, just a few hours ago, but right now crews are on the scene, including hazmat crews, because of what the train was carrying. As you mentioned, it was carrying ethanol. Now, that does not pose a health risk to the general public, according to the fire chief, but of course ethanol is very flammable, and that is why they brought in the extra teams to help as they're doing the cleanup. We are working to get there and get you some video to send back into the station, but right now they're waiting on, the chief has told us they are waiting for the CSX crews to unhook the remaining 90 ethanol cars and pull them back, and then that will give the emergency crews a chance to start offloading the ethanol and get that cleanup going. We have been talking with Chief Marion Blackwell and found out that they do expect this to take several hours. When we get to the scene, we will notify you and get you video and pictures just as soon as possible. But right now, they have told us that this is not presenting a public health risk. If anything changes on that front, of course, News 13 will be the first to let you know. And we will have a live report for you in just a few more minutes as we continue to follow this breaking news out of Spartanburg County. Victoria Dunkle, News 13.
Right now we are following breaking news in Spartanburg. A train carrying ethanol derailed overnight.
And News 13's Victoria Dunkle is live at the command post. And Vic, we know that 3 cars jumped the tracks there.
That's exactly right. I just got done coming from the command post. I spoke with the chief. Marion Blackwell is handling this. That is where they're deciding what is going on. And let me tell you, you can see behind me the tracks that are affected. This is just a little bit outside of the downtown area of Spartanburg. This is near the depot on Magnolia Street. And we just sent some video back in. Let's get to that while I tell you what I just learned from the chief. The information he told me is that, yes, in fact, 3 cars carrying ethanol have either been knocked off the tracks and are flipped or are in between the tracks and not on the actual track at this point. Here's what's going on right now. They have not ordered any evacuations because at this time they have no leaks that they are dealing with. Of course, this is ethanol, and it is a highly flammable, it's basically straight up alcohol. And they're using it to mix with fuels, as we are seeing the ethanol mixes at the gas stations. This is what that's going to go for. But what they have to do is handle it carefully. CSX is the train route that this is on. Their crews are here right now. They are walking down by the tracks to determine how to get the heavy equipment in. And their big question they have to address right now is, can they leave these train cars intact and let the ethanol stay inside them and then just reset them onto the tracks, or lift them out and put them onto a flatbed and get them out of here? Or will they have to make the decision to offload that ethanol? And of course, that would add just a little more risk for trouble. If any of this sparks, it'll be a huge fire, very fast burning, very high temperature. But right now, everything seems to be contained. Of course, this is a very developing situation. We have no injuries at this point. This was a train carrying 90 cars total. There were 4 engines. Behind that 4th engine was a buffer car that was there with flame retardant. So there are safety precautions in place as they're hauling this through the communities. But right now they're trying to determine how far back they can go and make sure they can safely fix this situation and get this train track cleared. Coming up in our next half hour, I'll let you know how this could impact people who are traveling down here today, and I'll also let you know if we have any new information about the decision from the CSX crew as to whether or not they're going to be able to get this turned back around or if they're going to have to offload, and that'll determine how long this process will take. Reporting live in Spartanburg, Victoria Dunkle, News 13.
We are continuing to follow the breaking news out of Spartanburg this morning. A train carrying ethanol derailed overnight.
That's right. News 13's Victoria Dunkle is live at the command post. And Vic, we know 3 cars jumped the tracks, right?
Those are the ones that were carrying ethanol. There is another one that's off the tracks. Right now I want to do a little show and tell for you here. You can start to see as the sun is coming up, there's a grove of trees there. That is where the CSX train was traveling north, coming up from the southbound area, and it comes up here, the chief told me, and makes a curve. That is where you can see the first of the 4 engines behind me. You can see some of the light reflecting off of the edge of the trains. If you see people walking along there, that's part of the CSX crew assessing the train tracks and determining their best route about to approach this. There are 4 engines. The 4th engine is off the tracks, and then right behind it is a buffer car, and it's off the tracks, is what I should tell you. And then behind that are the 3 trains that were carrying the ethanol. Ethanol, people are wondering what that is and what kind of risk it carries. Right now, that is a very flammable form of alcohol. It's what we mix in with our fuel and make the ethanol blends that you see at the gas stations. Now, just a few moments ago, I was able to talk to the chief, and he said that this is a situation where things could have been much worse.
So far, so good. So it's in an ideal place. If we were going to have a train derailment in the city, this is probably the place to have it. It doesn't impact any major roads. There's not a large residential contingent around it, so it's in the best place that we could have ever had a derailment.
And that really is why you are not seeing a huge rush or an evacuation or a major presence of emergency first responders right here by this area, is because it's not really in a residential neighborhood. So what the chief has told me is they're waiting right now. CSX has its heavy equipment in the area, but they need to get clearance and figure out who actually owns the easement up against these tracks that are behind us, because some of those trees are going to have to come down to bring in the equipment, and then they have to determine if they can just upright the cars as is, or if they're going to have to offload that ethanol before they try to get things back in place. Coming up in our next half hour, I'm going to be talking to the chief again, and we're going to find out the latest if CSX has determined how soon it could have this situation on its way to being resolved. Reporting live in Spartanburg, Victoria Dunkle, News 13.
All right, and we continue our live coverage of breaking news involving a train derailment in Spartanburg.
News 13's Victoria Dunkle is right at the curve where that train jumped the tracks. So, Victoria, what do you have for us right now?
Well, right now I want to show you the first daylight pictures we're getting back from the scene here. We're right live. You can see the front engine of this train, and in behind those trees is where the curve was. And the chief has been telling me that that is where the first of the 3 ethanol trains that jumped the tracks are located. And we're talking to Chief Marion Blackwell right now. You just got off the phone, and there is new information just now that you received. What can you tell us?
Yes. CSX has got the train separated of the unaffected cars. They're moving those off, so we'll restore traffic on Main Street and on Henry Street. So that'll alleviate any morning traffic problems. At this time, the incident stabilized, so we're not in a hurry to have to take any immediate or major actions. So we're going to let it set as it is. The CSX is going to bring their accident investigation team in to find out what went wrong before we move anything. Once they are completed with their investigation, the cars that are still upright will be moved back onto good rail and moved out. The cars that have been overturned, we're actually going to pick those up, put them on flatbed trucks, going to haul them out with the product still in them. So we won't have to transfer any product. That eliminates a lot of risk.
That's what we were talking about, because ethanol is extremely flammable, and any spark could really set off a serious fire, right? Absolutely,
and we have a contingency plan for that, but hopefully we won't have to use it.
Once again, any injuries tied to this at this point?
No injuries. The conductor engineer's fine. And again, it's in an area that is not populated downtown. It's not in residential sections. So for us, it was the best case scenario.
Chief Blackwell, is there anything that people who are watching right now need to know? Otherwise, it seems like it is really not impacting directly any people's lives, but we're just going to wait and see mode while they do the investigation?
Absolutely, yeah. Just continue on, go to work, and do your normal daily activities. It's not going to impact anything in downtown Spartanburg or any of the residential areas surrounding.
All right, Chief Blackwell, thank you so much. We'll be back in touch with you throughout the morning. Appreciate your time. So as you just heard, breaking news right now, CSX has come up with a plan on how they're going to handle this situation. Again, there were 3 train cars carrying ethanol that jumped the tracks. There's a buffer car that also jumped the tracks as this came around a curve here in Spartanburg. And what we can tell you at this point is CSX has separated the rest of those 90 ethanol train cars and pulled them back, getting them out of the way, so that safety hazard is gone. And they're making a plan to get the other trains uprighted and onto flatbeds and out of the area once they complete their investigation. Of course, this is a developing story, and we will bring you live coverage throughout the morning, as well as online and on our Facebook and Twitter feeds. Reporting live in Spartanburg, Victoria Dunkle, News 13.
Let's check in one more time with Victoria Dunkle live in Spartanburg.
Yeah, she's been at the scene of a trail derailment all this morning. And Victoria, what's happening right now?
Well, right now, let's take a look at right behind me. We've got the sun up. You can see one of the members of the CSX team down there by. These are the first of 4 engines that were pulling this train up from the south heading north, and they could make the turn here. And in this curve, that is where, behind those trees, is where you have 3 of the 90 ethanol train cars off the tracks. 2 have overturned. 1 is kind of in between the tracks. Right now, and in the last half hour at 6:30, when we were live with you, you were the first to hear, right after the police chief, or excuse me, the fire chief got off the phone from CSX, that they had a plan in place. They're going to be keeping things where they are for now while they investigate the cause. And then later this morning, they plan to bring in heavy equipment like a crane to upright those cars, put them on flatbeds, and get them out of here. The key move in all of this is they've decided to leave the ethanol on those cars, which reduces the risk. If they had offloaded, a spark could have set them off very easily. So no leaks, no threat to any people in this area, and we are seeing progress in the efforts to get this cleaned up and get things moving. Live in Spartanburg, Victoria Dunkle, News 13.